This video was brought to you by Tall Man Toys and Comics.
He's my brother, Daddy. Look, he's my brother. You know, 'cause my name is Daddy.
Let me tell you all a little story. When I was a kid, I had a Nintendo 3DS or Nintendo DS or whatever, and I would have Netflix on it. So I'm looking around, looking to see something to watch, until I came across this show, Life'sAZoo.tv. So I didn't know what the show was at first, and I was in middle school, by the way, so I wasn't really that smart. So I watched the first episode, and I really enjoyed it. And I got to watch every single episode before it disappeared. And then when I showed it to my mom, she said, "No, stay away from that show until you are over 17. And that's the last time I ever saw this show. Until now, as I have rediscovered this show on YouTube and watching every single episode again, man, I feel like I'm in middle school again. My guess is you've never heard of Life's a Zoo, and it's understandable. It's a Canadian reality show that only lasted for 20 episodes and is made for adults. The show was created by Cuppa Coffee Studios, who also worked on JoJo's Circus and Glenn Martin DDS, which, yeah, we're gonna get to those one day, I promise. Though the thing with this show is that this was released in Canada, so that explains why not many people know about it or even talk about it. Though, how would you describe Life'sAZoo.tv? Well, it's kind of like you took the animals from Sing, and then instead of putting them on Broadway, you put them on reality TV and make it for adults. So, in other words, you can just call this Sing meets Chicken Little for adults. So now that I am an adult, rewatching the show from my middle school years, what do I think of it? Well, here are my thoughts on the unknown Life'sAZoo.tv. The stories. So here's the plot to this show. 7 animals are forced to live together in a mansion. In order for them to win this mansion, each one of them has to go over these challenges, and whoever loses to these challenges ends up getting extincted, which means dropped out of the show. So the rest of the show is just these animals going against each other to win this mansion. Sort of reminds me of Total Drama and Drawn Together. Though unlike those shows, Life's a Zoo didn't last very long. It only lasted for one whole season with 20 episodes. And to be honest, I kind of feel bad for that. Okay, so here's the thing. I know a lot of people are not going to like this show. Unlike most adult shows that like to focus on being trashy and vulgar, Life's a Zoo focuses on telling a story and shows the interaction between the characters. And while the show is kind of raunchy and vulgar, there are times where the humor can actually be funny. Some of the jokes here have substance. There's some actually really funny, clever jokes in this. Not to mention, the stories and challenges that these characters have to go through is kind of fun. One of my favorite episodes is when all the contestants, except Chi-Chi, all end up getting into a fight, but then when they wake up one morning, they all end up in this really white maze. But in order to get out of the maze, they have to learn to get along and appreciate each other. That is so surreal, but kind of fun at the same time. There's also a good episode where the main cast ends up turning into Flash characters because their show went over budget. It's pretty crazy. There's also a good episode where they have a singing competition, and the penguin Dr. D really wants to win it, and at the very end it involves a rap battle between Chi-Chi and Dr. D. Sounds a little familiar, but still, this is still a good episode. So while this show may seem like a typical reality show, they do add some twists and turns in each episode, and there's some crazy things that happened in the show. Yet that's what makes it so much fun. The animation. The animation for this show is surprisingly pretty good for the time. I mean, it's not great, but it does its job pretty well. The character designs, although ugly, still look distinguished, and they do have the same expressions every once in a while. The dialogue on them is pretty well good too, especially the mouth movements. My only criticism with the animation would be when they go into flash. They don't look bad, it's just they kind of look a little stiff and cheap, which I understand because this is a television show. But then again, it looks kind of weird when they move around, especially when they're moving. But other than that, the animation, for the most part, is pretty good. The backgrounds look nice, it's very colorful half of the time, and while the pacing is a little bit slow, it does work its job pretty well. Definitely one of Cuppa Coffee's best animation. The characters. As far as the characters go, they're actually pretty well written. Except for two of them, and that's Manu and Bobby. They're not bad, they're just kind of not interesting and kind of one joke. But the rest of the characters, while they are stereotypes, they are pretty well written in their own right. You have Ray as the party animal, Jake as the perverted pig, Chi-Chi as the fat joke, Mareski as the drunk alcoholic, Dr. D as the rapper, Rico as the gay crocodile, and Claude is just, well, the jerky host. It's kind of cliched, and yeah, they are stereotypes, but they're there for a good reason, and since the show is a satire, I do like how it takes these tropes and these ideas for them to mock them. For the most part, the characters work what make this show so interesting. Now, are they likable? Not really. The whole point of this show is just these characters or these strangers getting along, and they are kind of mean-spirited, but that's what makes it kind of unique and interesting. I don't know, I just really like these characters, except Manu and Bobby. And finally, the music videos. So in each and every episode, there's always a music video. Now, I'm kind of split on this, because on the one hand, most of the music in this is not that bad. In fact, I really like most of them. But some of them are kind of dated, and yeah, most of them have no point to the plot, and just putting them out of random nowhere, it's just kind of weird. But to be fair, this is a reality show, and because of the reality show elements to it, it kind of works. But on the one hand, some of the songs they choose are not that good, but I actually really am a fan of some of them. One of my favorite songs was Fashionable People, and it's actually a really good music video, and it's actually kind of funny. The rest are pretty good, and some of them are pretty bad. Depending on your taste, I think you'll really like the music in this, but then again, there's not really much to say about the music videos. So, overall, guys, I can't help find the fact that I actually really like this show. Is it vulgar and crass? Yes. Are the characters mean-spirited? Absolutely. But that's what makes it really fun. And it doesn't try to be too hard with it. I mean, this show is not for everybody, obviously. But it's just something that I can't help but just watch whenever I'm feeling bad or if I feel like I need a good laugh. Life'sAZoo.tv was always there for me. And you know, it's kind of a shame. Imagine if this show kept on going. I would have loved to see more adventures with these characters. And I feel bad for that. Now, in terms of the show's future, or at least in terms of its legacy, there were plans for a spin-off, but I have heard nothing from Cuppa Coffee ever since. And you can actually buy this show on DVD, though it is very expensive. It's kind of hard to recommend something like Life's a Zoo, but I guess my only recommendation is that if you like total drama or Drawn Together, you'll probably may end up liking this. Though if you like the more mature live-action reality shows, this will probably not grab you. But if you're really interested, the show is actually on YouTube for free, though they are censored, so that kind of sucks. But I say at least go watch the series if you have a good sense of humor. Though I hope they do reboot this show someday because it has potential for more episodes.